Hello everyone, welcome back to the part 4 of how to reaccess your chess. Today we are going to look at 6 different diagrams, and the topic of today is the minor piece bishop. We are going to talk about the bishop, and we are going to come up with more than 2 to 3 videos on the same topic bishop, and we are going to look at how to use bishop at its 100% capacity. Even strong grandmaster doesn't know how to use the bishop at their full capacity. But after watching this video, all the 6 diagrams are simply critical, and they are simply going to be an eye-opener for you to look at. Just your perspective of looking the bishop would simply get changed after looking this video by looking at the 6 different diagrams. So we are going to look at the 6 diagrams, so now let's quickly check it out. So coming to the first diagram, here we have on the board. Here it's black to play, and if I need to assess the position, I would say the bishop on e7 is simply bad. The bishop on c8 is still a good piece because it's still open once the knight moves. The bishop on e7 is simply bad because of the pawn and because of the knights. So yeah, here black played a move c5, which is simply a horrible move. An option for black would be to perhaps push the d pawn to make the bishop on e7 feel good. Perhaps might come on b4, hitting the knight and the rook. But black played the move c5, which is simply a horrible move, a simple horrible positional move. If you ask the bishop on e7, how does it feel? It would say horrible. Because the bishop on e7, you're simply putting your pawns on the dark squares. So the dark square bishop is simply a horrible piece. And after c5, white responded c5 with again a horrible move. Like a better move would be to simply play the move d into e5, and after knight into e5, knight into pawn into queen to e2. White would like to keep the queens on the board. And if you assess the position, you would realize the bishop on e7 is simply bad, and the bishop on c1 and c4 are doing a pretty much good job compared to the bishop on e7. The bishop on c8 is still a good piece, but yeah, that's the main problem for black. The bishop on e7 is a very bad piece, so which gives the white a good advantage, a good practical chance. So yeah, but what happened in the game here is white pushed the pawn to d5. And that's the main problem. Like many players often go for pushing up the pawn. And the reason behind pushing up the pawn here is they get more space in the center, which also looks very logical. But guess, you are not playing according to the you're not playing 100% accurate to the position. You are humans after all. So like playing a move like d5, you're putting the pawns on the light square, and suddenly the bishop on c4 is a bad piece, just staring at its own pawn. It is not a good piece. The bishops are usually strongest in open positions. The fewer pawns in the way of a bishop, the greater its score. So, if the pawn would not be on d5, the bishop is doing a good job. But once the pawn comes in between the bishop, it is a bad piece. It is just doing nothing, but it's a big liability for white. So that's the point of the first diagram, like how to use the bishop, the basic concepts. You must always try to keep the bishops where they deserve, where they belong. Like bishops always deserve in an open position. You try to put the bishops in the open position. It's the first rule of the first diagram. So now let's move to the second diagram. Okay, so coming to the second diagram, it's a very beautiful diagram. It's white to play. And if I just give you this position, what are you going to play in this position if you are white? So you can write the answer in the comment box below. So yeah, the move which was played, like first of all, this game was from 2006, and this game was played online in like a 30 minutes game in 2006. Yeah, very old. And the games were between a 1700 player versus again a 1646. So yeah, white played a very interesting move, a very beautiful move, which is c5. And the idea of c5 is very deep. Like after c5, white is simply hitting the pawn. Okay, so many players, first of all, if you try to assess the position, you will realize the pawn on the d6 pawn is simply an isolated. So white would never in the world will think of pushing up the c pawn, breaking up a connected pawn chain, and making his pawn more connected, and you are a pawn down. So white would never do this in the world. But guys, the basic point behind giving up the pawn here is white first jumped in with the rook, hitting the queen. Queen goes back. Now here comes the main reason of sacrificing the pawn on c5, which is to simply put the bishop on c4. And now you will realize the bishop on c4 is simply a phenomenally placed, hitting the knight, pinning up the king. And yeah, if white wanted, white can also go for capturing the pawn. But that's not the real point here is. Putting more pressure on your opponent is the main point. And after bishop to c4, black will try to defend the b pawn, and now you can simply jump in with the queen. And suddenly black game is over. There is no play for black. Black can play a move like b5, but after bishop e6, the game is over. Like, white can even sack on f7, followed by rook to d7. Like, for example, if you move like a6, you can even play a move like rook e7, not sacking. And after a move like this, bishop into f7, and the game is over. The queen can't no longer defend the knight. So that's the main point. You see, like if you don't come up with the move like c5, bishop c4, like how in the world are you going to play in this position? The bishop on e2 feels like a dead piece. Like the pawns are the ones being a traitor of white, not allowing the bishop to develop himself. And black pawns are beautifully placed opposing the bishop. So the only beautiful thing in this position is to play the move c5, sacrificing the pawn, opening up the rook file, and also getting up the bishop. So by sacking a pawn, you opened up the rook, you opened up the bishop, you simply mated your opponent. So that's how you should use the bishop. So it's what it means in the second diagram. So now let's move to the third diagram. Okay, so we have the third diagram on the board. It's white to play. And yeah, all those who don't know, black pawn are going this way, and white's pawn is going this way. Okay, so yeah, it is a very funny position. Like black is having 7 pawns, whereas white is having 1 pawn and 1 bishop. So material-wise, black is winning because it's 4 versus 7. But yeah, it's white to play. But despite being 3 points up, still black is completely losing after d6. You can see the power of the bishop covering all the light squares. After d6, the basic point here is even if black can try to catch up the pawn is a bit one step ahead the king, and the king can't reach the box, and white will make a queen and checkmate the black king. That's the whole point. And yeah, even if you try to make a queen, white can capture it. We try to push, and it doesn't matter because it's completely losing. So that's the main point here of this beautiful diagram. The power, look, like how to use the power of the bishop at its 100% capacity. You can see even a 1 bishop can stop all 7 pawns. It has the power of stopping 7 pawns. So yeah, it's a very beautiful position, and I personally love this position. So yeah, this was the third position. Now let's move to the fourth diagram. Okay, so here we have the fourth diagram on the board. So it's white to play. White is first of all having a good position, very good position, I would say. The reason behind having a good position here is mainly because of the bishop. The bishops are open. Yep, the bishop is looking over the king, whereas I would say black is also having the fine position. But the bishop on e7 is a bit passive. And yeah, white is also having some good space in the center. And yeah, that's the main point. The bishops are open. So how will you continue this position for white? If you're white in the position, you will come up with the move queen e4. A very common move, but a very important move. A very amazing move. After queen e4, the idea of white is pretty simple. You want to checkmate the black king on h7. So black is usually having two options to play f5 or g6 in order to stop the mate. If you play a move like g6, bishop h6 is a very strong move. And even if you try to play knight d5, thinking you can't take because the pawn is protected. So if you try to capture the bishop, knight will capture the bishop. But here comes a very soft move, queen f6, hitting the knight and also rook. So after one move, here white is simply winning. White is simply an exchange up, whereas black is not having any compensation against in the exchange sacrifice. So yeah, the best move is f5, which was happening in the game, and after f5 here we simply end pass, and after rook into f6, rook e1, simply developing the piece. Knight f5, queen check, king h7, and now here comes the power of the bishop. Bishop to g5. You can see how if the bishop is open, white can play the move bishop g5, simply hitting the rook. You have to, if you try to capture, which is not the best, knight g5 check, knight into e6, and suddenly black, it is game over for black. But there is nothing black can do. Knight into g7 is coming up, so you have to give up the sack exchange. But even after rook into e6, it's completely losing for black because the king is in the center. Black is an exchange down, and what else do you want? So yeah, that's the main point. After bishop g5, black's best try would be to play queen g8, but still, in the end, if I just simply exchange everything after bishop e4, white is simply an exchange up, whereas black is having no good compensation against exchange down. So yeah, this was the fourth diagram, a very critical diagram to find the move queen e4, of very common ideas, and like always look out for such moves like bishop g5. Very interesting. I personally love this move. So yeah, this was the fourth diagram. So now let's move to the fifth diagram. So yeah, coming to the fifth diagram, here we have a game. We are going to discuss a game. This game is from Biel 2005. This was a tournament name, also who don't know. The game is between a Volokitin versus Y Pelletier. Both the players are very strong players in their times. So yeah. So white starts with 1 e4 and c5. We are not going to look at the opening. It was a Sicilian defense. Queen d2, bishop b4, f3, knight d4, queen d4. If you try to capture with the bishop, here e5 is a very strong move, and once the bishop goes back, suddenly after takes, the e5 pawn, basically black simply got a free move with e5, getting a tempo, and black is very comfortable. But that's the main reason you capture with the queen, because now the bishop is hanging, you can't play e5. You take, and after b into c3, here we have b6. Yep. So what's happening in the position? Yep. If I try to give you this position, what would be your evaluation? How will you assess this position? Is it good for white? Is it good for black? Or is it simply an equal position? So must tell me in the comment box below. I really want to know what are you guys thinking. So what's happening in this position here? Like, it looks like black is playing very logical. Like, black played the move b6 because black wants to put the bishop on b7. He wants to short castle. And once he achieves this position, black is very comfortable. White is having two double pawns on c5, which is a bad pawn structure. An isolated a pawn, a very weak pawn. But that's the main weakness of white, which black can easily target. So, but what's in the exchange white is having? So first of all, white is having the bishop play, which gives a very good advantage to white. But in order to gain an advantage, you must know how to use the bishop. Like, if I just see the position, I would say black is not having the dark square bishop. Black is having the light square bishop. So a normal reason white is having something in exchange of these bad pawn structure is the dark squares. Because white is having the dark square, so white can take control of the dark square. But the point here is how will white even try to take control of the dark squares? Here black plays the move b6, which is very logical. Black is basically taking away the dark squares from the dark square bishop of white. So here, here white found a very amazing move after 26 minutes of thought, or I guess 12 minutes it was it. He came up with a very powerful move, which is not easy to think. The move is simply amazing, I would say. Like, a normal move for white to continue the game is to play perhaps bishop e2 followed by short castle. Like, that's the usual way to continue. But here white simply found an amazing move, and I personally like this, which is bishop to c1. And the idea here is the bishop on e3 is not doing that much. Definitely the bishop is open, but the pawns limit the bishop, and the bishop is not giving that much damage, which he could if the bishop reaches on a3. You can see the bishop would be extremely powerful once he reaches on a3. So I played the move bishop c1. Idea is to play bishop a3. And here black played the move e5, which is the best. If you go for a move like queen to c5, here white analyzed this move, and the basic point is after queen c5, white can trade off the queens, bishop a3 hitting the pawn, d6 long castle hitting the pawn again, king e7, and here we have e4. Hitting the pawn and the knight you have to take, and after bishop takes, bishop check, here comes a very amazing move, rook into d7. And after knight, you can actually put this position on the board, and the engine would say, it's an equal position. White's having a slight edge. But once you capture with the rook, the bar would simply go up for white. And after knight d7, rook d1, rook d8, it looks like what's happening. Like, even if we try to do this, it's winning for black because white is simply an exchange down. But guys, here's the point here is white is not going to capture the knight, but he's simply going to push. And the idea of playing c4 here is white mentioned after playing c4 that white is going to play bishop a4, bishop a3, c5, c6, and the game is over. How in the world are you going to stop? How in the world are you going to continue this position for black? Like, you can't castle because the f8 square is protected. You can't make a move like f6, king f7 because the knight is hanging, and the two bishops are way powerful than the rook. So how are you even going to, like, black's whole position is parallel. He can even play rook g8 to catch it, and he's still losing. Yeah, that is the whole point. The queen c5 is a bad move, completely bad move. If you try to play bishop to b7, bishop a3, take control of the dark square, rook c8 hitting the pawn, c4, bishop a6, e5, hitting the knight. Knight goes back, bishop d3, bishop c4, short castle. Because, okay, definitely taking is a bad move because black will simply recapture and we can already claim black is better. Short castle, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight e7, rook c1 hitting the queen and the rook, queen b8. If you try to play knight c6, here we have queen e4, and after d4, black is simply in the defensive game. The bishop is doing a well job, and white is very comfortable. White can even go f4, f5, and white is very strong. So yeah, queen b8, rook trade, rook c1, queen b7, queen g4, knight f5. You can't castle because the knight is hanging. So knight f5 in order to protect the pawn. Queen e4, trying to trade off the queens. You can't capture because it's a one movement. So queen b8, queen c4, and the position here is very difficult for black. Like, you can't castle, you can't capture. Like, how can you even continue the position for black? It's completely winning position for white. That's the main point. Bishop b7 is also a bad move. So black decided to play the move e5, which is very logical. You are hitting the queen. Queen to d2, short castle. Bishop to a3, hitting the rook. Rook e8, bishop to b4. And the move is very logical, bishop to b5. a6, hitting the bishop. Like, that's the first move that comes into our mind. And the idea of bishop b5 here is simply pin the d7 pawn. If you try to play a move like bishop b7, suddenly after bishop d6, black is very uncomfortable. So a6, bishop d6 hitting the queen. Queen a7, bishop c4. And suddenly both the bishop looks extremely dangerous for black. b5, bishop b3. Bishop b7, long castle. a5, a3. Rook c8, g4. Rook c6, g5. Takes. This was a very powerful move. You can't capture because of queen to d7, and suddenly the game looks over. Queen d8 is coming in, f7 is hanging, you can't defend her. Queen c5, queen takes, bishop takes rook. And here, if you try to capture the bishop, I will simply capture here. White is simply an exchange up and winning the game. So black played rook c7, queen to d8, and queen f4 checking, b1, rook c8, queen b6, and black resigned the game. You can capture, but okay, in the end, you are going to exchange down. Even your pawns are down, so you're losing the game. So yeah, this was the game. A very instructive game. While an active bishop might look good, a useful bishop trades style for substance and addresses the deeper needs, both dynamic and defensive, of a position. So as we discussed, that we landed in this position, which looks like, if you don't know how to continue the position, once black plays the bishop d7 short castle, rook c8, you are in the if you're white, you are in the one who is in the defensive side. You are going to defend all the game. But if you know how to play correctly, like a Volokitin, you're going to find the move bishop c1. You know how to use your bishops at 100% capacity. Queen d2 coming back, bishop e3, bishop b5, bishop d6, bishop c4, bishop b3, long castle, a3, because the idea was a4, so you are making a move with the bishop. Rook c8, g4, you're pushing up the pawn, hitting the knight, and now bishop e5, simply amazing move. Takes. If you take, as I said, it's completely losing, yeah? So queen c5, now queen to d7. It's losing. It's falling apart. So that's the reason black resigned the game. It was a masterpiece game played by white. And he showed us how to use the bishop pair at their 100% capacity. So this was the 5th diagram. So now let's move to the final diagram of the day, the 6th diagram. Okay, so we have the position on the board here. This game is from 2006, and it was an online game, 30 minutes game. The game is from 1800 versus 1700. The names of the player are, I don't know, perhaps Gamera 16, who is 1800, versus Mr. Schlock, not a Dr. Schlock, but a Detective Schlock, but yeah, who is a 1700 player. So what's happening in this position? Let's see. If I just give you this position and I say it's white chipping. So what is going to be your assessment? Is white better, or is black better, or it's equal? So yeah, you can tell me in comment box below, or you can even think. The position is very interesting. So if you try to assess the position, we can say white's bishop is very open compared to the black bishop, who is simply performing a defensive task. And we can also claim that the e6 pawn is a weakness, a long-term weakness, because both the rooks are simply hitting the pawn. But if you think deeply, the bishop on d3 is actually a bad piece compared to the bishop on d7. Now, like, many players are simply blown their mind. They don't know how can even this bishop be good compared to this bishop, because the bishop is open. The bishop is simply stuck. But this is all about what the position demands. The bishop on d3 is definitely open, but it isn't doing anything. Whereas, because white is having its own weaknesses. If I give black a move, what is the move that comes first into your mind if it's black to play? I'm pretty sure many players would think of even sacrificing a rook for the knight. And eventually, knight into d4 is coming up, so it's very strong. Like if you try to make a move, suddenly rook into f3 takes, and after knight into e4, the position is very strong for black, and many things, many complicated things, and I can already guarantee that black is better in the position. So that's the whole point. Black is also having his own play. Definitely the e6 pawn is weak, but the bishop on d7 is actually defending the pawn. The bishop is stopping the two rooks, which is just too much. Whereas the bishop on d3 is just doing nothing, just staring and doing nothing. You can definitely go with the idea of bishop b1, queen d3, but that's very too slow. As I said, if you even try to play bishop b1, rook into f3 is a very strong move. So you can't make a move like that. And once the pressure on e6 releases, black would love to put the bishop on b5 perhaps, to trade off the bishop, or perhaps maybe to think of even capturing on s3. But the bishop b5 looks a very natural move once the pressure on e6 releases. So let's see how the game continues. As I said, knight f3 is hanging. So white played the move knight e5. Knight into e5. You can't capture the knight pawn because of bishop to g6 and queen and the rook is hanging. And after rook into, knight into rook into, the queen is still hanging, so you have to move the queen. And after bishop takes, if you try to move the king, it's winning. Yeah, white is a piece up. You have to take. And even if I just trade everything, white is having a rook versus the bishop, which is winning for white. So that's the point. Knight into e5 was played because both the things are happening, hanging. Even the bishop g6 is coming in. So knight into, rook into, queen to h4 because the queen was hanging. Rook to e2 defending the f2. Queen f4 asking a queen trade. If you try to trade off the queens, it's a bad idea for white definitely because the d4 pawn is hanging. So white kept the queens. Queen g5, g3, queen h5, king h2. In the game we had f4 and black went on to capturing the pawn. And here we simply have 1-0. White won the game because after rook h2 the queen is attacked, rook h4 and the queen is trapped. So black simply resigned the game. But that's not the point, yeah. King h2 was played, but the best move after f4 was g5 and the game and the position is very complicated. King h2, e5. And yeah, that's the point. Like from a defensive piece, now the bishop on h7, d7 is performing a very, like he's now attacker now. Such a e5, you have to capture the e5 pawn, queen h3, king g1, and now d4. Hitting the rook. Rook move, rook to f3. Bishop check. If you try to capture the pawn here, suddenly after rook takes pawn, it's a mate. So you must be careful. So white gave a check and he came back in order to cover the f1 square. Here comes d3. Again a powerful move. Defending the pawn, hitting the rook. Rook d2, bishop to c6. Hitting the rook. And suddenly you see the bishop is a very dangerous piece. Rook to h4, queen to f5. Putting pressure over here. Bishop into d3, rook into d3. You can't take because it's winning for black now. So first rook f4 hitting the queen and the rook. Queen h3, threatening mate in 1. White captured the rook and he played f3. Rook d2, queen takes. And here after queen e1 check, it's a draw. You can play here, it's a check, and here black can even repeat. Yeah, black can repeat the moves and it's a draw. Sorry, queen g4. Yeah, and it's a draw. So yeah, you can see how in this position, from this position, which looks good for white, like the bishop is too active, the bishop is too passive. If you know how to play the position perfectly, you can even think of a way that this bishop is also a very good piece. He's also performing a very well task on this particular square. But you must assess this position and to have this knowledge of assessing the position. Like that's how the top grandmasters play. They assess the position, and once you know how to assess the position correctly, once you know what is happening in the position, what is the position that is demanding, like what are the pieces the bishop is demanding to get open. So black opens up the position like e5. So you need to play chess according to what your pieces are demanding. You must talk to your pieces, yeah. Like there is a code that you must always talk to your pieces. So yeah, that's the point. You must put your pieces at the ideal square. So basically, in all 6 diagrams we discussed how to open up the bishops. The bishops deserves an open position. Like I hope that your perspective of looking over to the bishop must have changed after looking at these 6 critical diagrams. So tomorrow we are also going to discuss the same topic. Our topic is basically going to be on the bishop. So yeah. So it is for today. So yeah, you can enjoy now. And I hope that you must have liked the video. If you did, then make sure to like the video. Subscribe to our channel if you're new to our channel, and make sure to share this video with your friends. Because I know like there are many players and even your friends are extremely weak at moving the bishops. So you can definitely share this video with them. Yeah. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess. Now get out of here.